The next question that we looked at, though, is, so the donor had assumed, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. After the deal closes, maybe I'll write a check and set one of these up. But what we suggested is, hold on, maybe there's an advantage to thinking about this before you close the deal to sell your business. And I've compared on the left, what if, now ultimately they settled on a pretty large number, a $2 million contribution into the donor advised fund. What I'm comparing is the tax benefit. On the left side, if you write a $2 million check into your donor advised fund, well, you'll get a $2 million charitable income tax deduction. Here I've focused on the capital gains taxes that they would save. So this seller lived in Texas. They were selling a business entity, a pass-through, in which they were material participants. So they were going to be subject to a 20% federal capital gains tax on that sale. Well, that $2 million deduction would then save them $400,000 of capital gains taxes outside of the fund on the shares that they were selling. So really, if you look at the out-of-pocket cost, the after-tax cost to this donor, it's only $1.6 million for their $2 million contribution. But notice on the right, well, what if instead they were to gift a minority interest in their company into the donor advised fund before the company is sold? Now they get the double bonus. They still get that same $2 million charitable income tax deduction. It saves them $400,000 in federal capital gains tax, but they also avoid the capital gains taxes on that $2 million that goes into the donor advised fund. So in total, they save $800,000. Now the after-tax out-of-pocket cost to them, it's only $1.2 million for that $2 million gift. Nate, I should say one question that sometimes comes up among sellers is, well, when is the right timing to be able to make this contribution?
And how much is a minority percentage?
Yes, so I mean, I guess in theory, a minority percentage would be anything up to 49% of the company, although most sellers don't come anywhere near that sort of amount, right? It might be anywhere from $250,000 worth. If you're really going to go through the trouble of putting company shares in beforehand, you're probably still looking at a sizable amount. If you're thinking, I'm just going to do my next 2 or 3 years of charitable giving and I might as well get the deduction this year, but I'm putting in $25,000, well, then I don't know that I'd go through the trouble of funding it with shares ahead of time. Timing wise, though, here's why that's important is, look, I get that sellers would prefer not to put shares into the donor advised fund until they're pretty well convinced the company is going to sell. On the other hand, you can't wait too long. Right? If you've basically gone through all of your due diligence, you've finalized all your documents, and the wire's going to hit tomorrow, that's too late. The IRS might challenge that and say, you know what, Mr. Seller, I know the money isn't coming till tomorrow, but you already sold your company, so you're not going to get all these tax benefits we've discussed. The sweet spot is typically after you've signed a non-binding letter of intent to sell your business, which is how most of them are drafted, but before you've signed your definitive purchase agreement. So you've signed an LOI and you're in due diligence, and now maybe tomorrow you're going to sign your final paperwork. That's the time to make sure these shares are already in the donor advised fund.
Okay, that's good to know from a timing perspective, because there's a period of time between those two events that they've got to get this done.
Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications about new videos and interviews. And introduce yourself in the comments. Are you a buyer or a seller?